I think this is the good one. Sorry for
All right, no worries. No worries.
interruption.
No worries. Yeah.
Okay, so let's restart with the mGear 3.5 overview, please.
All right. Yeah, no problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at a tool that's in beta. And we can find this in Shifter, and it's the Auto Fit Guide tool, right? And there are two tabs with two different approaches to the idea of saving you time for placing your mGear specific guides. And on this first tab, what we're going to start with is the Auto Fit Biped, and that's named that way because it's based off a embed skeleton Maya command that you introduced me to, Miguel, that is very specific to bipedal characters. And it's not one that I was familiar with prior to working on this tool. And as you mentioned in a lost recording, you said you found it looking at just the documentation to like an update.
Yeah. I remember I asked someone on the forum something, and they told me that it was available when they did the a quick rig from there was mapping the human IK. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so as I started to wrap my head around the tool a little bit more, I realized that they're using they seem to be using the same voxelization process that they do for the skinning to approximate the location of what is always a consistent 18 joints for, again, a biped character. So the idea or the premise for this tool or this tab is that what can we do to use those consistent 18 joints to quickly place our mGear guides, right? So here, what we're going to do, we're going to start with this character. And currently, the beta tool supports just a single mesh. The skeleton embed tool does support multiple meshes, and hopefully we can open up the beta to support that in the future. So once we have the mesh loaded, what we're going to do is we're going to go over there to a biped template and just import one. And you can see that in this, as it relates to this character, it's already in a near approximation, but you know, in some of the other tests, this will work with characters that are like 50 times bigger or smaller than that, right? And hopefully, then the only thing that we need to input is an association between our guides and what will be the embed skeleton joints that this tool outputs. So since we're using the default guide template, we can just go ahead and apply default associations. And you can see that these are the names of the joints that will be created as a result of the embed skeleton tool. And you can see these are on the tooltip, these are the tools, the guides that it is associated with. So once we have that, we can just go ahead and create and match or run all. And sadly, we've handed it off to Maya at this point, and we can't really gauge like a progress bar as we do with the relative guide placement in here. So you can see that quickly. We've taken a template that didn't fit our character, and thanks to the embed skeleton tool and some smart adjustments that we can get into in a little bit, we've just fit those guides to the character about that quickly. So if I can even Z back, run it again, and hopefully in the time that it takes to run that, we can save you a little bit of time placing these initial guides for a character, and hopefully that's just that much quicker for you.
Yeah, so the idea of the tool that when we was talking like is that the it's like a quick starter. It's like,
yes.
I mean, the tool, it's based on this embed skeleton command, that obviously we don't have access to the source code of this one, so it does what it does, and I think it does a great work, but it's not like perfect. So it depends, I guess, what you need. You will need to adjust manually, or maybe if
Yeah.
it's just like super fast to make some kind of animatic or something like very quickly, maybe it's good enough. Who knows? But
Sure, yeah. And that's why, like, despite the number of options available on this tool, everything that is set there is hopefully set just enough that your only interaction is to apply defaults and then just create and run all. And despite the effort that goes into the tool, we want you to spend maybe just as long as it takes you to hit that button and wait for the output. That's how much time we really want you to spend in this tool. It's just really just to get you started and rigging as fast as possible. So you can see there, right? But let's say, like, for example, if you were more curious as to like what the end result or what options you have available to you, you can just create embed nodes, and it'll create the nodes without any smart adjustment whatsoever, right? And you can kind of see what that placement would be. And you do have the option to select some and mirror, and it'll mirror the whole side for you. So you can, like, because we always want everything to be symmetrical, but you can see that even the results from the tool itself are not symmetrical until we make those adjustments too. And when we match the guides, if we have smart adjust enabled, we make some estimates ourselves as to where the wrist is going to be for the character, because it really only projects to the end of the arm. So if we like matched without any smart adjustment, you can see it'll just snap. And that position, while helpful approximately, isn't really as helpful as a layer of smart adjustment on top, right? And then, yeah, because we're using the default template, and I created a default association, it's really just as easy as hitting default. But if we have a more custom bipedal character, we can go through and make those associations with a active selection. And then if we want to save time in the future, we can export that out to a file. Wow, that's much bigger than I needed it to be. We can export out that association to a file, so that way we don't have to do that manually every time in the future.
that's great. And this is the beta, means that it's probably gonna change in the future a little bit, or no, just some polish, depends how the beta goes.
It depends on of course, the feedback from the community, right? So if there are more suggestions, or of course bug fixes, right? Things are subject to change. This tab, the AutoFit biped, is probably going to, I imagine, probably this is closer to its final form, right? Whereas with the relative guide placement, you see it's a little bit more bare bones, but there are more things to get into, and I'm sure people in the community will have more feedback or suggestions for this tab, which we can get into now, unless you have any questions or things we want to talk about.
No, I think this part it's clear, and I think the most interesting part is the relative guide placement, because this is way more powerful, I think.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and then just to wrap up this part, right? Once you're done, you can just go ahead, delete your embed nodes. Of course, you can delete those manually, and no matter the size, the shape of the character, or its like orientation, like so, it'll still output the same 18 or so joints. But it's really designed for characters that are just upright, bipedal, like so, right?
Yeah.
But if we're going to go ahead and switch over to our relative guide placement, right, we can see that here we have a situation where, say, this character that has been custom fitted to this small generic female character, right? Down to the placement on the fingers. Let's go ahead and take a better look, right? Let's say we have this character, and the common denominator between this female character and this male character is, you know, as in a lot of studios, there often is a universal or generic mesh that shares the same topology between characters, right? So going off that idea, what we can do is open up the AutoFit guide and then go to the relative guide placement tab. And that name is hopefully, that name is just more an explanation of what it's doing, right? So we'll take this female character, apply her shape. And a part of the process for the relative guide placement is what it does is it takes the guide and crawls the hierarchy in its entirety and takes every guide and grabs the closest point from that guide on the mesh that we've supplied, and then it records its distance from that point and saves it for later, so that way if we go to apply it onto another character such as this, it can do it instantly for us, right? So let's take a look at what that looks like instead of me just explaining it, right? So here we have our character as she is, and we're going to record her placement. And on my machine, forgive me, it's a little bit slower than it is on one of the workstations, right?
You have this nice progress bar with the emojis.
Yes, I do.
That's an extra.
I was staring at it so much. Yeah, that's an extra. I do hope this little guy survives the beta.
I love it, man.
Yeah, right. It's just I was staring at this progress bar so much during the testing of this beta that I thought I'd keep myself a little bit of company, and he's enjoying himself. So we're going through, and you can see the initial guide placement has been recorded, right? And perhaps in future installments of this, we can have like an indicator of some sort to display to the user that it has been recorded. But once that's the case, so we've recorded it, and I promise on other machines it's much faster than my little laptop here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rename our source to just something else. And so again, same mesh, same topology, just in very different shapes, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to update the guide placement, and that thankfully is quicker. We can see our guys jamming here. And then just like that, we've taken the rig that perhaps has been very customly fit to our female character and applied the same work to our male character here.
And notice
and you can see
that it's also offset in the space. It's not in the center. It offset completely everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's based off the topology. Quick shout out to Jerome, who, when speaking with him, he gave me a great many examples of what are some ideal ways to grab the closest point and then sort of mirror that point to grab an additional point of reference. And that's what we're using under the hood for this right now, right? But yeah, you can see it even keeps the orientation. Should have put this on a layer, right? But it'll keep the orientation from our source right there. And the idea is that you can see that to place it, it didn't take any time at all. So in the time that it took to record from her and then update the guide placement onto our male character, that's as quick as it takes to update an existing rig that may have already been approved by supervisors such as yourself, Miguel, onto another character, and hopefully get you rigging even that much faster.
That's great. And also, this is something that it's been in mGear, this module, for more than a year now, 2 years almost.
Yeah,
Uh,
it probably has been in there for about 2 years, hasn't it? Yeah.
and
There hasn't been a UI, but
yeah,
it definitely has been in there in API, and we haven't gotten around to it.
and the thing is, this it can be. I mean, from day zero was you being used, or it can be being used on custom steps or scripted. So you
Yes.
once now with the interface, it's much more easier to record your stuff. We're not gonna go over this part now, but basically you can
Hmm.
record and export this information on an external file,
Yeah.
and then with the script you can run it on a batch to different characters, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
probably speed it if you have universal topology, and you through the geometries, and you speed a bunch of rigs.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that like thankfully with that, we can take something like this, and again, I'm not a modeler, but we can take his hand.
You show me when you was developing this part,
Yes.
the really funky positions, and it was matching. I was really surprised.
Oh yeah, it really is. You can see this is just a quick, the character doesn't even need to be, I mean, obviously these are two A poses, right? But the character doesn't even need to be in the same pose to like approximate right there. So this right here, if I had more points, it would have aligned to the arm. But yeah, you can see it's still keeping the orientation of the hand. And basically, what we're trying to do is just preserve the amount of work um, that someone's put into placing these guides, where however long it took, and preserving that onto different characters as long as they share a similar topology, or the same topology.
One thing is that I want to mark here is the autofit biped. It's for bipeds. Only it's like
Yes.
hard coded for bipeds, but this tool can work with any morphology.
Yes, that's it. That's true. And literally, the lowest common denominator between both is just that you need the same topology, and that is it. We could you can morph it between anything. If this universal mesh were between, let's say, this generic female character and a quadruped, with the same, and it would apply the same guide placement relative to the appropriate positions placed on our source mesh.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's very useful for, yeah, especially when you have many characters, and you need to place quickly stuff.
Yeah.
It's time saver. Of course, there is limitations like everything, but I mean the time saving, it's big. It's really big.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the things right there. So an excellent example of like where it saves you time, but it isn't perfect. Where is the orientation in the hand? Those are the same orientations from her source over there, so those might be ideal. But this character is a little bit off the ground, as she's supposed to have heels, right?
Mm.
So you can see that she's floating just a little bit off the ground, where our male character is a little bit less so, right? Because he has just some flat platform shoes. So with the relative guide placement, it still projects the same delta or distance as it was on the source, but it also protruded them a little bit through the ground plane, because it was expecting him, of course, to be wearing the
Yeah.
same heels, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But awesome, Rafael. Thank you. The
No problem.
and I think this. I mean, there's a lot of time that is gonna be saved with this tool, especially for, I mean, for riggers.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. We're talking about the UI, but the module has existed there for a long time, about almost 2 years now. And with the update of the addition of the UI, there has been updates to the API, And of course, as it is in beta right now, it will receive more documentation and more examples. And hopefully where it'll really be helpful is going to be on the back end with custom steps that, and as you integrate it into your pipeline, you might be able to automate from a single character, such as this female character, to many different types of bipedal characters. But again, it does support many different types of morphology.
Thank you, Rafael.
Hey, no problem.
Do you want to add something else, or can?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think for a beta, that's pretty much it. This UI right here is just to, you can add and remove guides that contain a hierarchy. So, for example, if this female character contained hair, we can add the root guide of those hairs to this list here, and it'll skip crawling that hierarchy, saving you just a little bit of time. Because obviously our male character here, while bald, but still wouldn't have the same hair as our female character. But there'll be more examples and documentation as the tool grows.
Yeah, the default configuration also it's configured just to work on the biped, but that's the default. I mean, you can change it at any time. That's also important.
Yeah, absolutely.
To note.
Yeah, absolutely. We do believe that the main target for this tool will most often be, a biped to other series of biped characters. So we just went in and plugged in what we assumed is the just minimum common of all biped characters as it relates to mGear.
Yeah, I think at least on Anima, but I think many studios, 90% of the production, I will say it's bipedal characters or humanoids.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the most basic.
On one of the shows, you had a Cyclops character, so you could easily just grab an existing rig, update placement, and then just take along the extra eye for the placement. But then once you get here, you could just go in and then delete any eye that you didn't want, and then just as fast as that, you already have another character ready for skinning.
That's great. Thank you, Rafael. Okay, I'm just gonna jump now to my screen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna share my screen with you.
Sure.
So now I'm recording again, and okay, sorry for the interruption. I don't know how it's gonna look later on the edit, the jump. We had a little issue with Skype. It's been a little bumpy today.
It's been a long day. What time do we have? It's 11:30.
11:30. The storm, it's finished. It was crazy here in Tokyo today. Check the window.
That thunder.
Yeah, I was playing these Thunder Buddies from TED on my phone for my kids. Thankfully, I don't understand what they say because it's not for kids, the song. I think I'm not good at that. Okay, so back to the mGear thing that is the point for this video that hopefully you're watching after this record. So the next tool after the AutoFit guide, it's the Channel Master. Great name. So, okay, I need to move this Skype thing somewhere. So what's this Channel Master? I think, Rafael, you'll see a little bit, but not sure how far as you see. But basically, it's an alternative to the channel box. So when I select, by default, the Channel Master behaves like the channel box. So you select something and it refreshes and it syncs. By default, it's only this main tab and you can lock it. So this is the big advantage. If you use it like this, is that now it's stuck there. So you can change your parameters without needing to change or keep the selection. So for instance, if I select something as like the arm, for instance, I lock, now I can unselect and change IKFK or things like that. that's the most basic use of the tool, and you don't need to do anything. It works out of the box like this. But if you want to create custom configurations for the channels, you can use the nodes of the tool. So basically you need to create a node that is going to be stored on the scene. It's similar to the node on the anim picker, and it's going to store like basic like JSON dictionary, and it's going to store the configurations for you so it can be persistent, and it also can be published with the character. So let's do it. So the first thing, it's to create the node, you can go File, New Node, or this little plus button here. So I'm just going to use this one, and I'm just going to create one that it's ARM, and this is the ARM node. So now you see the ARM node. If I uncheck this and change selection, the main tab, it's always like this. So it's something that can be refreshed, and it's something more like not recorded. But I can create new tabs now. I didn't make it before, but if I click this button without a node, it's gonna say you cannot, you need a node. Now I have the node, so as soon as I click here, I just can click here left, so it's gonna be left arm. So I'm just gonna select here, and the behavior is slightly different. The main tab, it's gonna be refreshing all the time, but here no. Here it expects you to configure your channels. So basically you can select whatever you want, and this big plus button, add new configurations. Every time you change the configuration, you need to save the nodes. Don't forget that. If you don't save the node, if you have several nodes and you change or refresh with this refresh icon here, it's gonna lose your configuration because it's not saved, or it's gonna fall back to the previous configuration, save it. So that's the most basic thing. So you can create as many tabs as you want. I'm just gonna create another for the right. I'm gonna select this, select same channels, plus, and the current node, and then I'm gonna create a new tab that's gonna be called all, and here I can just mix tabs from channels from both objects. So I'm selecting all. You don't need to select it like this. You can go one by one. For the moment, the tool doesn't have any system to edit the order, so the order that you had is the order that's gonna be on the list here. You can use this quick filter. So you type, you can quick filter the channels here. You can see you have two roles and two armpits role. So how you know which one is from which one? Okay, so you can use the display channel full name. So there's also a shortcut, Control F, and it's gonna tell you that this is ARM UI L and this is ARM UI right. It can be anything, and this is not even related to the shifter rig, can be used with any rig. So that's one thing to filter. But yeah, the other way, it's like you can create also like let me check up to, for instance, where is the left, or let me gonna make it easier. So I'm just gonna filter all the left ones like here, and I can set colors like this. And now I'm just gonna take the right one and set another color. I put like turn down colors, like dark colors, because the letters are white, so it contrasts better. So now basically you have two colors like this. So that's another way that you can easily distinguish between one or the other system. And remember to save the current node before after each change. So now it's gonna work like this. So this doesn't have the colors, this have the colors. So that's the quick overview, how basically how to configure this. And after, of course, you can export all the tabs or the current tab and import. It's gonna create a new node with import node or configuration, or import add. So basically you can export one tab and then import add, so it's gonna add to your current node. So yeah,
That
that's
looks great. It seems like you have seems like you've created the concept of like an anim picker specifically for attributes and controlling it through like obviously like something similar like a channel box, right?
yeah, exactly. It's not replacing the channel box. Like for instance, in channel box you can select two
Sure.
controls or two channels, and with the middle mouse button you can scroll two at the same time or edit two objects at the same time with the same attribute.
Hmm.
You cannot do that in this channel
Sure.
master. So there are complementary, I think in some situations it's going to be better to use the channel box, and some situations it's going to be better to use the channel master. In our specific case, it's designed to use like for instance, we use a lot of plane shapes facial rigs on production, and it's
Hmm.
going to be very useful for this because it's a unique channel for each plane shape, and it's persistent, so the animators can have it there. Also, another advantage is that you can have more than one channel master open, and you can have it with different nodes, different configurations, and you can stack one on top of the other, things like that. So you can create
Oh, that looks real nice.
your own configuration like this, and each one is independent from the other, and so on. So um, it's yeah, it's something that represents, I think, flexibility for the animators, and it's important to remember that it's customizable, so you can always share your, like, let's say in a specific rig you use specific channels all the time,
Hmm.
and it's this rig is like a standard biped, and you want to share with other uh, characters, so you can export this and import it. And the thing, it's like the namespace that you have on your node, it's the namespace that is gonna be using for let's say the configuration. I think I'm jumping too far now, but I will show at the end the namespaces. Okay, so let me finish the, like, a little overview on the interface. So the
Hmm.
display, you have to the full name that we already see, and then we have the default order and alphabetical order. So if you want to have this in alphabetical, it's gonna process for you in alphabetical order and back to default. On later we have keyframes. These keyframes here, it's almost the same that we have access here. So we have the keyframe, the copy keyframe, and the paste keyframe. For the moment, copy and paste works for each tab for all the keys or the channels at the same time. And the key also keys toggling. So for instance, now it's everything keyframe. If I key again, it's gonna toggle. You can have several keys like this pushing on this small square box. And if I click again here, it's gonna check, okay, I have keyframe, I don't have keyframe. So if as far as there is one channel without keyframe, the first, it's gonna be keying everything, and the next one, it's gonna remove everything.
Oh, interesting.
And the copy, it's gonna copy the values, whatever the value is. And let's say now I go to another value, and when I paste, it's gonna paste the value and keyframe, and all at the same time. This is in a buffer. As soon as I change tab, it's gonna clean the buffer. So now I cannot paste anymore because it's already clean the buffer. So I will need to go and paste it just to safety. It doesn't matter if you have a filter, it's gonna apply for everything. So the filter is just visualization. These tools works on the whole tab. Then,
Hmm.
well, we have this that it's very straightforward. This is selecting something in the channel box, plus add, selecting something here, remove, and it will remove it. Of course, this is not safe, so if I refresh, it's gonna come back as I told, but if I just save, it's gonna be stored with this configuration. And the lock that is actually only working for the main tool. So that's the main window here. So we saw the tab options here. This is to add tabs that you can also add tab from here. You can duplicate the tab. That's very interesting. So you have the all one. So duplicate this tab. Now it's all copy, and you can change and maybe change your configuration for any reason. I don't know, and just create a random thing like this. So you can start from something that you already have and create a new configuration. Always save, and you can also change or rename the new tab. And also it's gonna take care if you rename the tab with existing name, it's gonna index this for you. So if I put all, it should be all one, so avoids the clashing. And well,
Oh, yeah. It seems like you've created something that that would allow an animator to very easily customize something that they know will be very useful to them, but also to other animators, and they can share that easily, right? And also, it can be published along with the rig, right?
yeah, exactly. It's a regular node, so you can, when you have your rig, you can parent under the rig, you publish the rig, and it goes with the rig. So it's very, very straightforward. Just gonna remove the shape so it's there. What else? So I have the main thing. Options are there. Then for each channel you have two context menus, and we already see one of them, that it's right click on the name and you have the set color, clear color, but you also have this set range. So let me do another node. So I'm just gonna create a new node, just gonna call this box, and I'm just gonna create a cube. And for instance, the main, I have this selected, so I can just go here and in tab just duplicate the main tab. So now this is a copy, means that if I unselect here, this is gonna be refreshed, but this is not. Remember, save. And now this range by default, if it doesn't have min max the value, it's gonna go from 1000 to -1000. So this is huge. So what I want now, it's to have it this all to from, I don't know, 0 to 10, for instance, or from 0 to 10. So I can set range, and also the set color and all these options works in a multi-selection. So it's gonna go 0 to 10. So you can put it like this. Okay, so now this range is only from 0 to 10, so it's easier for the animator to like quotate the range, and it's gonna apply for everything. Then you have the reset value to default, so it's gonna reset to default. So you can select, probably you have crazy values there, and select all and reset by to default. Sorry, just one more here, reset value to default. And the last one, it's a select host. So maybe you have a mixed match between different. So remember, save, because I changed the range. Now I change to my ARM node, and I don't remember which one is this one. So I can select the host that is the control that owns the channel itself. That is this one.
Okay.
So that's the host. That's a terminology we use, like the channel host, but it's the same, not the channel host. For the keyframes, it's like soft image approach, and we have these colors that it's red, it's keyframe, that is like Maya. Green, it means you have animation on this channel, but it's not keyframe on the current frame. So if I move, I don't have now. Okay, so now you have this yellow one. Yellow means it's changed. There's a difference between the current animation and the value that you have set. So it's like telling you, take care, these values have been changed and you didn't save keyframe. I want to save keyframe, and now should go from one to the other, and when it's keyframe, it's highlighting red. And I found in the testing that sometimes on the curve it may flag this as yellow, and I think it's because the precision. So in some situations, maybe the precision, it's saying, oh, it doesn't match, but it matches. So if you find that, just let me know if you have a good example, because I tried to reproduce sometimes and I couldn't do it, but I remember a couple of times that I see yellow where I should not, and I think it's because of precision. But in general, that means that. So 3 colors: green animation, red keyframe, yellow, it's the value doesn't match with the animation, and of course the gray, that you don't have animation. Right click, you have remove animation. So that's pretty straightforward. It here doesn't work on multi-selection, sadly. So even if you select like this doesn't work like that. So if you want to remove all the animation, you just delete the current frame here. Sorry, here. So keyframe, delete current keyframe. So it's gonna remove for all the channels on this keyframe, but it doesn't remove the complete animation. So that's for the moment the options that we have. And later we have these sliders. The sliders, I have to shout out the people from PyFlow, because these channels, these sliders are from PyFlow, and I mean, I asked them if it's okay to use it for this tool, and they was very kind to allow me to use it, and I keep the license, so it's slightly different from mGear license, this channel widget, but it's just a model. It's not the tool itself, it's different model. Anyway, so this tool is, this is slider. You have the numerical value that you can punch there. The slider itself, it's really nice because you can click and slide, and you also can click directly on the position that you want. So that's very straightforward how to set the value. So it's very fast. So if 1.5, you click around there and you get it. So the other thing, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. One thing I like that I saw there with the channel limitations, right? I guess something that an animator could use that for is as it applies to, say, again, like a biped character. If there's like a clavicle movement or any type of movement that's like too extreme for that character, they could set the limit and right?
Yes and not. It's the slider range. It's not the limit of the control. So if I have,
I mean, I'm sorry, when you set the attribute, right? You said you can set the attribute to a range, to a limitation.
Yeah, but it's the channel only. The channel, the slider. So in the box, I set this translation max 10.
Okay.
But it's not lock. It's just the slider doesn't go far enough.
Okay, sure.
So
okay.
So it's meant for that. So it's not like limiting for you. It's not. It's just like an interface to work with the channels that you have here, but doesn't change your channels at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing, and this is one of the nicest things that the PyFlow slider has, is the middle click, and you have this kind of Houdini approach thing. So you need more precision. You just can go and slide slowly. That's
an increment value?
Yes, exactly. So it represents increments. So you can go from 100 to 0.001, the precision, and that's the increment that is going to represent. So you can see it goes slower, and it's really slower. You see this almost moved. It's very, very precise. Sometimes you need.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always make this bigger. The other thing is when you click and slide, if you want to undo, I need to undo 2 times, and because the first click it's set in one position and the sliding is set in other position, so that's like it enters to slice there. And this is how the tool works. So there's I mean because the functionality one click it represents one input, and then the sliding when you drag it's another input, so it's 2 inputs.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, the tool, it supports 3 types of like channels. It's like slider channels, can be integer or float, the box menus like this one, and also the boolean that I have it on the box. So you have the boolean thing here. So this is the 3 types that represents. I think almost the all the animatable attributes are like these ones. You don't have like string attribute or things like that it's gonna be animated. So
no, yeah.
I think if we find another like edge case where it's something else that it's need to be supported, I will check it out. Yeah. So about the namespaces. So right now this is safe, and this has a namespace that it's basically the root, so it's no namespace. But let's say I set this box node with some namespace, so I'm just gonna create a new namespace, whatever, and just add this box, the box node. So I'm just gonna add selected. So now this is under namespace 1 box. So here, right, first it's not refreshed yet, so I just need to refresh. And now when I go to this namespace 1, it's gonna, if I open my where's my here, so it's gonna complain that warning, this is not found, or maybe the wrong namespace, because it's looking in this namespace the channel that we set. So there is two options here, or like in this situation it's not lost, the configuration is just it cannot show you because it doesn't have the way to connect these two. So if you save now, it's gonna purge your channels and it's gonna save empty. So this can be used, like let's say you have a configuration where with one character that has some channels, and you have another character that have a subset of these channels. So you can force to open like this. It's gonna warning that it's not finding these channels, but if you save, it's gonna save with the current channels that it found. So next time you open it doesn't warning anything. That's one way to use it. But obviously the thing here is, like, of course, if you get the cube and add it to the same namespace, as soon as you refresh, it's gonna find again the channels and it's gonna work again everything. So the tool doesn't store the namespace. The namespace is grabbed from the namespace of the node. So this makes that exchangeable with other characters, because you can export with one namespace and re-import with another namespace, or just move the so I, like, for instance, if I have another cube 1, this is an example, so I'm just gonna export all tabs. It's a cube, yeah, desktop. So I'm just gonna put here blah, doesn't matter. So now I'm just gonna import this again, and this is, oh, it's in the same namespace because I had this namespace. Okay, this is wrong demo. Just let me set here the namespace, yeah, because I have it here. So everything that comes, it's the namespace, or everything created. So sorry, I'm just gonna import again. And now it's not in the, what? It creates with the namespace 1. Shame on you, but doesn't matter. Because it's not in the namespace. So basically, if I refresh while it's here, you can see now it finds the other cube 1 that it's in the same namespace. That should be like this. But these two are the same namespace and these two are the same namespace, so it doesn't affect one to another. So I'm just can take this one, refresh, take this with the namespace. So you can see this is moving one cube and this is moving the other cube. So that is how it works with the namespaces. It's very straightforward. And the cool thing is, yeah, because I can put this inside this, so when you import this with an namespace, all the nodes internally, they're gonna have the same namespace. So everything is gonna be consistent and working perfectly.
That's nice. Yeah, wow, that's nice. I like the way that I like the flexibility in the namespace. So it's not something that you can just create it in a local namespace, right? And when you publish it, and as in many other production workflows, when you're referencing, it'll just work automatically.
Yeah, as far as the node is in the same namespace, it's gonna find the channels. And the advantage is you can exchange any node with any namespace and it will work in any character. Or if you do import twice the same character. Okay, some words on an advice. So the first thing, it's on performance. So is this tool taxing your performance? Yes and not. That's one of the biggest challenges that I had when I was developing the tool, is to keep the performance down. So to show you this, I'm just gonna delete this. Just gonna close this for the moment. So I'm just gonna brute force here some crazy keyframes like this. So you can see, woohoo, look at my arm. It's crazy. Doesn't matter. Whoops. So wrong, so it's getting the channel box. Oh, damn it. This is window, it's in the middle always. Okay, so so when I okay, let me add some tabs or something like this, so we see something updating there, and save this one. Okay, so when I move, you can see my values are updating here, and
yeah.
my performance is let's say like 20 something, 16, 26, depending of the thing. When I play, it's not updating, so it's 80 something. You see, it's 70, 78. So it's updating on demand. So now that I stop the play, when I move my mouse over, oh, it's gonna, you see these values, it's popping. It's I'm just gonna go another frame, and now, well, when I scroll, it's always updating, so it doesn't make any change. But if I play, yep, there, it's gonna refresh. So it's refreshing on demand, and only when scrubbing like this or changing like this, it's when it's gonna be updating. So I have heard from some animators that even this performance on the scrubbing, it's bad. So I'm gonna add something in the future to turn off also this, so it's just callback. But for the moment, the easiest workaround, it's that you still have one, it's close the window, so it's pretty straightforward. Here is just keep the main lock without anything selected like this. So now it should be, you see, it's now peaking 60, 61, so it's not updating because there's nothing there to update. You see, so that's the two options. So you can, when I scrub here, it goes max 20 something if I am in the main, because there is not any channel to update. So if you need to do scrubbing a lot, just do this little thing, or of course you can close the window and it's gonna go on with the window, the callbacks that it's triggering this information. I try to make it as faster as possible, but there's always a trade-off, and in this case was that, so the updating thing. So if you don't mind that doesn't update when you're scrubbing, when in the future you will have an option to turn off that thing. So that's the word on performance. But remember, just playback, it doesn't affect you. So playback, it's always good because it doesn't update, and you can do like this, moving the mouse. You can see it's triggering
yeah, I believe in HTML or when dealing with web browsers, that's called it's referred to as lazy loading.
Oh, that's I didn't know the term, but yeah, I just
yeah, it's not a negative term. It's just like it is just a load on demand sort of thing.
Yeah. The other thing, it's gonna come in the future, this option, and also I will add some options to make the color semi-automatic, or some automatizations, like for instance color code per host. So it's gonna just check the different hosts that you have on the, like we did here with these two colors, but something like put random colors automatically and things like that. And some other things. Oh yes, one little thing, this I forgot, the keyframe all tabs. So basically right now this keyframe works only for the active tab, and it works in toggle. If you have this activated, the keyframe, like for instance, I don't have keyframes here, and I don't have keyframes here, and I don't have keyframes here. So if I key, it's gonna key everything. But when you have this active, it's not toggling. It's always additive. So it's gonna be adding keyframes always. So even if I click again, it's not gonna toggle. And that's a choice I did to simplify some behavior, especially if you key everything, but you don't have all the tabs visible, and you toggling, maybe it's confusing. So I decided, okay, key with all tabs is always key, it's not removing. So, and yeah, that's it for the tool. I hope the animators find it interesting, and I hope useful. last words on this release. As usual, the release can be downloaded from the GitHub mGear development and gear distribution and in the releases tab. And you will find here the zip tool. We have finally, I bought a second-hand Mac Mini, so I can now test and compile the Mac solvers. So that's about time.
All right, yeah.
And
That's
still,
awesome.
I didn't pay to Apple to be official developer. Well, unofficial, but they want to charge you like $100 a year to just create tools or something. So for the moment, you still, if you have Catalina or older, you still need to do this little command execution on your path where your solvers directory are. So unlock this quarantine thing on. I think it's only from Catalina. Yeah, that's a yeah, that's something I need to check in. But for the moment, yeah, it's open source. It's free, no money. So if you want to pay me the
developer's license, right?
yeah. Developer, I don't know how they call it. The yeah, well, basically it's 100-something bucks a year you need to pay. Anyway, the other thing, it's we have a little update for the documentation. We know we need to improve this part. The YouTube videos like this one are super long always and hard to follow or far too hard to find when you need just a specific information. So, well, you still have the forum, but we try to go little by little updating the documentation. And in this one, we have this quick start tutorial from Ragnar. It's really well done and helpful. Also, we have this mGear rigging workflow from Chris. It's also really nice. This one was originally on his website and was the unofficial mGear workflow document. Now it's the unofficial official unofficial. I don't know. So now it's kind of official, but it's still unofficial.
That's nice of them to add that, though.
Sorry?
I'm sorry. That was nice for him to add that, though. The unofficial official documentation.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it did a really nice explanation of everything. This is more like philosophy, the data center rigging, how it works, and so on. Some snippets and things like that. So it's very. I think the quick start is nice to kick start and just keep everything running. And this one, it's more like a little deeper. So, and it's like in more like conceptual things. It's really great. And the last thing I did, update the anim bits, the part for the channel master. So hopefully this tool is well documented with some warnings about the save a lot and the comment I did on the refresh on demand and everything. And hopefully all the information is here. So yeah, you don't know how you will not have any issue using the tool. Okay, now that's it. For me, maybe we can wrap here. Rafael, do you want to say something?
No, that's it. You know, please always feel free. Again, we know that these videos run a little bit long and they're not, you know, we don't always have like the easiest way to search for like something really small that you just may want to do. So we're always paying attention to the forums. So please just post any questions at any one of us, and hopefully we can get you going as fast as possible.
And yeah, one more thing, it's thank you, Rafael. I'm glad you're back after 1 year ictus with pipeline. It was
pipeline. That was a deep hole to crawl back out of. But I'm glad to be back and contributing as much, you know, anything that I can to the project.
And also again, big thanks to Jerome, Chris, Ragnar. I don't know, I forget probably people, but everybody who helped to the mGear development and supports on the forum. And thank you also for the developers from PyFlow for the nice slider and widget. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. See you in the next videos.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye.
All right. Yeah. Bye bye.